Andy says read. Welcome to the channel. Today we are going to do the next letter in the alphabet tag, and that is the letter C. Now, this tag originated over at Jim's Books Reading and Stuff channel. I'll put a link to that in the drop down box below, and we're going to dive in. And just fair warning, I think this tag is going to be the one that we could have named all the books Sandy has loaned to people and doesn't have back to show you during the tag. Let's go. Okay, the first prompt is C is for countries. Countries like Cuba, Canada, Colombia, Chile, Congo, Cyprus, etc. You get the idea. Okay, so we're looking for what's your favorite book from an author from one of those countries. And I'm going to go with Canada because it's just to the north of the country where I live. And the book Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. And I don't have the book to hold up for you because I loaned it. It's not here. But the Station 11 book, I read it many years before the pandemic happened, right? But now, every time I go into an airport, I think of the book Station 11 and how appropriate that airport would be in a pandemic or in an end of the world situation. I look around to see, okay, what kind of amenities are here? How great would this airport be if I had to stay here for a week or a month or the rest of my life? Yeah, Station 11 put that in my brain. And so now I look at airports a little differently now. And I spend an awful lot of time in airports, which is unfortunate. Okay, next prompt. C is for canine or cat. Show us your pet. Okay, I don't have a canine or cat pet at this time in my life, but I do have some adorable, cute conures. So we're going to go with C is for conure here at this house, and I'll put a link to a video of one of my conures in the drop-down box below. Because if you don't know what a conure is, you are missing out on the cuteness. Okay, next prompt. C is for classic. What's the last classic you read? And you guys, I'm not sure. I tend to reread some books that are awesome and great to me, like Jane Eyre. I tend to reread Jane Eyre. But the last classic, I think, that I read as a new to me classic was, let's get this up here, The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I didn't get exposed to Wilkie Collins when I was in college or any time after. So I sort of discovered Wilkie Collins recently, like within the last, I would say 5 or 6 years. 5 or 6 years, yeah. Okay, so The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. It's kind of nondescript, this cover is, isn't it? But I very much enjoyed the book, so then I got his Moonstone book, some short stories by Wilkie Collins. I've kind of beefed up my Wilkie Collins reading, but this one I think was the last classic I read that was new to me, I think. You guys. Anyway, this was a really intriguing story too. I highly recommend The Woman in White. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. It's interesting how, that from the man's point of view, writing the story, he had this female protagonist who was basically being just harassed by her husband. I mean, she married this man who wanted to have her committed, and she was discovering that perhaps he had done the same thing with his former wife. It was an interesting story. Interesting. I enjoyed it. Okay, moving on. C is for children's book. What's the last children's book you read or your favorite? I'm going to do both. The last children's book I read was Girls Who Build. Girls Who Build. Yes, this one I think is going to be a very good book for the construction industry to have in its arsenal. This is a good book that will intrigue the girls you read it to, not just because, oh hey, look, you can have one of these many careers that's discussed in this book, but it's got a rhyme on every page that will attract the attention of the kid you're reading it to. I liked this. But my favorite children's book from when I was a little girl is Miss Jaster's Garden. Look at this. Get the glare off of it for you. Look at this book. Isn't this great? Look at the size of this thing, right? Miss Jaster is a little old lady who lives in this fabulous big house, right? And she's got a garden out back. And so in the evenings, she opens up her windows and her door and she plays her piano. And this cute little hedgehog comes into her garden and listens to the piano. And it's the cutest thing ever. And she figures out that this hedgehog is listening to her play the piano, and she befriends him and gives him milk. I'm wondering if that's not where, my desire to feed every animal that comes into my yard may come from. But yeah, Miss Jaster's garden. I don't think it's gonna fit up there. We'll set it down here. Okay, you guys, next prompt is C is for coloring book. Do you have an adult coloring book? Yeah, I do. I have H.P. Lovecraft and Little House on the Prairie. So there's a mix for you. Depending on my mood, I have colored in both of these, and I can't find them now. I have not loaned those out. They're just not around where I could find them. Okay, C is for comedy. What's your favorite humor book? Small Gods by Terry Pratchett. I have a couple other Terry Pratchett books here on the shelves. I don't have all of his stuff, which is kind of a shame. I don't have all of his library here in my library, but the book Small Gods, I remember laughing out loud as I was reading that. And that was my first look at Terry Pratchett. That was my introduction to him. And yeah, that one's my favorite. Okay, C is for comic books. What's the dealio with comic books? I don't know. And I think I have a couple of comic books. I didn't dig very hard to find one to show you guys, because I'm gonna change this prompt since I'm allowed to, and I'm gonna say Christmas. C is for Christmas. What's your favorite Christmas book? Because I'm kind of a Christmas crazy person here, I start listening to Christmas tunes in September, October. Okay, so my favorite Christmas book. I really like The Most Beautiful Tree. I know that it would be kind of easy to say that, a Charles Dickens story is my favorite, because that is a very good story, yes, but I like this, The Most Beautiful Tree. Get it up there where you can see it. Glare, glare, glare. There we go. Isn't that nice? This story is sweet and adorable, and if you have not read this book, I recommend it. It's a kid's book, right? So it's like quick and easy to read, but it's got a wonderful moral to it, because this tree, which is beautiful and has lovely, expensive ornaments all over his branches, he gives away each one of his ornaments to help feed the people in his town. Like here, he gives each one of these ornaments away so that the child, this little boy, can sell them and purchase food and clothing and wraps and like a little toy for people in this village. And by the end of the book, he has no more ornaments, and he doesn't think he's beautiful anymore. But the moral of the story is that his real beauty is in what he was giving and was in his spirit. It's just such a good story. It's a great story. The Most Beautiful Tree is a great Christmas story. I highly recommend it. And I would be remiss if I didn't say I have a Christmas book. Because I love Christmas, right? And this is my satire. What is it? Satirical paranormal romance is how you would say it. May Your Heart Be Light by Sandy Linder. Yeah, vampires and fairies mixing for Christmas. It is as crazy as it sounds. All right, then the last prompt on the list, C is for cookbook. Do you have a favorite cookbook? And I kind of do, even though I'm not real good at cooking. When I worked for the American Hereford Association back in the day, we had a cookbook that we released, and it had all these different types of recipes for making like beef brisket and different types of steak and hamburgers and all kinds of good stuff with Hereford beef. But there were other recipes in there too for those who might not be inclined to eat beef. I mean, there was a recipe for apple cake that was amazing. Here's the thing, I don't know where that cookbook is. I couldn't find it. I don't think I loaned that one out. I think it went missing in the big move. We probably shouldn't go into that in depth here because it will irritate the crap out of me. But anyway, there was a move to Florida and some things went into a storage unit that failed. Anyway, I think that's what happened with that cookbook. I think it went missing in that move. that's all of the prompts for the C tag in the alphabet tag. You guys, thumbs up. And that's it. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel, follow along here, and hit the bell notification so that you'll be notified when I do the random things.